So, I guess I could start off by saying the leaders are the 1% that people love to talk about so much are only the extension of the people. And leaders are also used to judge the people too, which means the people are already wicked anyways. Or for better words, the whole head is sick and the limbs are sick too. First posts are Allie Carter's, others are from Imagination Podcast. By the way, she has a new YouTube channel now. I'll put it in the description. These YouTube comments are from a video about Vicky claiming she got kidnapped. I'm not really going to talk about that part of whether she is or isn't. I'm just going to talk about the whole scenario revolving around the Vicky stuff. Or maybe even just the year 2018 as a whole, because there were a lot of kids who were being exploited and tortured by their parents at that point in time that were being made to be full-blown shows pretty much. Their whole life was just a show for people to laugh at and pick at, just like Beyond Scared Straight and all those other bullcrap Cash for Kids system shows. Accountability shifting, homeless hate, pride, that's the summary. Pride could really be the summary for all these issues. It's the same way that people claim that things don't happen that do. But to go ahead and talk about the 2018 thing, I kind of mentioned this in the, what was it called? Was it the Whoopins or the New World Order video? Or was it something else? I don't know, I think it was, but I mentioned the whole thing with Daniel Bergoli, Vicky. I actually mentioned the whole Vicky thing before because, of course, the Californian, hating on the southern accent because they're jealous, decided to claim I sound like a rehabilitated Vicky. It was honestly really funny, but then I realized that they were probably mad about something, and it was probably supposed to be an insult, but I don't know. It's just funny because, like, it just is. I've also mentioned this before other times on channels that are probably banned or the video's probably down, I don't know, but Vicky and Daniel Bergoli are, of course, both in the Serpent Seed bloodline. They're both, I don't know if I could say the word, but I'm just going to say they're both Ashkenaz. And they were born into families just like many other people, where they were taken through a lot of trauma-based mind control. Daniel Bergoli was the one who really brought a little light to the Cash for Kids system. Dr. Phil helped take her through the trauma-based mind control by paying for her to go to the TTI, which is one of the branches of the Cash for Kids system. Vicky, her situation is kind of up in the air, but obviously she's in the bloodline and she went through trauma-based mind control. Which is why they were not only chosen to be quote-unquote influencers and to drag other people into the whole industry bull crap and going through trauma-based mind control, then deciding to make music, which the whole point of that is to appeal to people that are under the same type of trauma-based mind control. So the whole ghetto traumatized persona, as I like to call it, similar to the feminine thug persona, but it doesn't even have to really have the whole thug part to it. And really, any gender is more likely to go into this side than the feminine thug persona. Not that there aren't females who go into the feminine thug persona, but what they're in appeals to everybody because it also has the quote-unquote baddie side to it. But yeah, like I noticed that rich white girls like Daniel Bergoli a lot. And in fact, no, a side thing that just made me really think for a second. So, I'm going to put the video in the description. The lady who did the whole docuseries on Vicky being kidnapped, or supposedly being kidnapped, she had edited a clip of some girl crying because Vicky came to the school. And that's some idolatry mess. I'm not going to lie though, Vicky may be another COINTELPRO controlled opposition plant, similar to Kanye and how he does things. But the speech she gave at that school wasn't wrong though. When she talked about the whole thing with people starting to like the same gender after getting abused as a kid, That was honestly probably one of the best things Vicky's ever said ever. This was also the time of Little Tay back in 2018. Little Tay was somewhere from like 7 to 9 years old. She was forced to do the whole ghetto thug persona thing too. She also was the usual industry plant who was being tortured and forced to make money for her abusive relatives, specifically her mom and her brother. But it was like some really confusing stuff with that situation. I remember she disappeared. Her dad was trying to get custody of her. I don't really know a lot about if there was a good parent in the situation. She's half white, or quote unquote white, as people like to say, so she's probably honestly in the serpent seed bloodline too. Which is why they're forced to play the role of broken Yasharael and the little stereotypical stuff that was pushed on us too, to be honest. And like I always say when I mention this, I'm not saying this to like bash them. It's honestly a messed up situation that people are born into any of these bloodlines and have to go through any of this stuff. And people just sit back and watch these kids abuse while either calling them racist, calling them bad, crazy, quote unquote spoiled. Everybody's bullcrap little input, or just, of course, saying that they need quote unquote whoopings. Straight up laughing at the situation when these people are obviously in very, very bad situations. In fact, I swear I heard somewhere that Daniel B0ul3 has cancer now, and it makes sense because that's what happens when you go through these types of things and you go through narc abuse. And people are saying that she's being trafficked by a whole bunch of risky Nigerian people. These kids have been getting trafficked their whole life. Their whole life has been trafficking and exploitation. Okay, I'm all over the place with the timeline and other things because I'm not really being that clear. But by she, I was going back to Vicky, not Daniel B0ul3. Just had to clear that up. In fact, for a while, a lot of people thought Little Tay was dead because some situation I can't really remember much of where supposedly somebody said that her and her brother were supposedly dead. And another situation with when she disappeared, whatever year that was, when she posted the pictures, somebody posted the pictures of her with like a lot of bruises from her mom or somebody, can't really remember. Her brother was of course abusive too. In fact, her brother played a big role in the videos and really making her make them, along with the mom. And then something else I have to throw in, which I'm gonna do since I'm screen recording, which is horrible, but I don't even remember if it was Malou or if it was the little Tay girl, but one of them said something about being forced to watch scary movies their whole life and being terrified and having to like watch or listen to their parents do sexual things all the time. But I can't remember if it was her or Malou or both. But yeah, the industry life of mess and horrors. I also remember a side part to that back in the day where XXXTentacion was the person that she would confide in about all the abuse she was going through all the time. And mind you, he was of course being abused as a usual industry kid as well. He lived the usual whole life of torture, and that's why he had CPTSD and BPD anyways. Usual jezebelic mom, dad was in prison or something. He was getting abused physically and I think sexually too by some uncle or something or cousin. It was something like that was supposed to be quote unquote watching him. The common situation where the kids are so abandoned and rejected these days from the horrible family systems, they don't mind selling out. He was kicked out a lot of times. Kicked out of school too, but he was kicked out at 17, and that's when he eventually found the industry dude. Honestly, well, I kind of left out some stuff because he also did start like doing underground rap on I think SoundCloud, and still the situations will always sound kind of weird, so I feel as though he was probably in a bloodline or his dad was a Mason or something. But this is a story that's told. There's always more to the story, really. he probably is in a bloodline too. Makes me think back to the situation with the Island Boys and how, like, they got quote-unquote adopted by this industry dude who tried to drag them into the music industry, who was beating on them, but they had been homeless and kicked out their whole childhood, so they were like, well, at least he adopted us and at least he takes care of us, and he's probably a pedo too. And then he had them, like, making out and all that weird stuff happened. That's what X's situation kind of reminds me of, minus the sibling thing. So X was brought in by the dude, and then the dude had him making CSA imagery, and he taught the kid Thelema. He taught him how to do sex magic. This is what he was doing with these girlfriends. And one of them eventually unalived herself because... In fact, this may kind of be a trauma dump, but my dad had this one girlfriend back in 2020 that could do this. And so, like, I remember he had got really, really sick, and he was looking for a pair of shoes under his bed, and then he found a huge crystal. Oh, that was funny. I don't even know how she like snuck that in there. Like, maybe she astral projects, but I do remember I used to go to her house, and she had a knife hidden under her rug for, like, some ritual, I guess. So, yeah, that was pretty funny. Well, somewhat. But nah, because I'm about to go way somewhere else. But yeah. So anywho, one part of the ritual is trapping people's souls in jars and other things when you do the sex magic with them. So the witchcraft they did on her had her, like, hearing voices and a whole bunch of other stuff, and they convinced her to unalive herself. So that happened, and that's actually why XXX called himself XXX, because he became addicted to corn after being forced to be in corn and to make CSA imagery and all the other things he was forced to do, and was quote-unquote taught by whatever the dude's name is, can't remember. But I guess maybe it's not even considered CSA imagery, at least with the company standards that make corn, because they say you can become a corn star at 15. I mean, that's still bullcrap, because there's plenty of people that are forced to do that are way younger, so yeah. I remember whose mansion he was living in Florida. But this was the dude who brought him into the music industry. And his mom, of course, reminds me of Y&W Melly's mom. And Y&W Melly's mom reminds me of Nova's mom, Tania, because they all had the Jezebel spirit. Like, it's terrible, and nobody wants to talk about this issue. And it's like these different bloodlines, people joining the boule, just the fact that the family systems are broken and people are demonized and stuff in general is a really huge issue that's causing a lot of problems. Like, seriously. For everybody. Even if you're one of the lucky people that has a healthy family, you're still going to be brainwashed by the media and dragged off by the media, because healthy doesn't necessarily mean that they're in the truth, because that's healthy by worldly standards. So they still don't know about the media and the brainwashing, and you're still going to be influenced by these people who have been traumatized and screwed up and split. These people, they sell out their kids, or more often than not, they're born into a bloodline that has to sell out their kids, quote unquote has to. And they traumatize them, and then they give them a mic. And that's one of the things that Tiffany Buckner said that I really, really liked. Because the way I had been saying it is that child abuse is an agenda, not a coincidence, and the music is made to appeal to people with certain types of spirits from trauma and certain types of trauma-based mind control, all that. That's how I had been saying it. But I seen one Tiffany Buckner video a while ago. Honestly, this is probably like a year ago. And she was like, America has a thing for breaking people and giving them a mic. And that was honestly true. And that's like, I feel like it could be another definition to the whole agenda of people being traumatized, them being given a mic to make music or be in TV shows or whatever. And to normalize the trauma symptoms and the multiple personalities and the DID splits and the alters. A funny twist to that is America has a thing for breaking people and dragging them through the cash for kids system and homelessness, and then giving them the military as their only way out, then leaving them to be a homeless veteran with schizophrenia. That's honestly not funny, but I feel like it's another twist to that. That's also true. Another thing to the background screenshots that I used, I want to throw in people losing empathy, people not caring about anybody else. In fact, I remember 2 scenarios. I mentioned this one time before. This was a long time ago. I don't even remember what channel this was on. I don't think it was the Evidence channels either. It was like some other channel I used to have. But I noticed that something that's always talked about is these boys especially buying their mom a house. We gotta do it for mommy. Like, what's his name? One of those Brooklyn kids, not Brooklyn, I don't even know if it's Brooklyn. I think, well, Sugar Hill's Manhattan. But no. I'm pretty sure it was Didi Osama, but it could have been one of the other dudes. I don't even know. Those New York kids. One of them was like, something naughty. We gotta do it for mommy. We gotta make this money for our mom. Then in one song by YNWB's son, this is one of the like really old ones. I don't even know any new ones. It was around the time of the whole Back in My Dream song. And he was like, I gotta make this music to make money because it's the only way I can make money. And honestly, that's nowhere near true that that's the only way you can make money. People think that it's the easy way out, but it's not. And I'm not saying people as far as him, because I know that this is something that they're being forced to do, to be honest. These kids are being forced into the industry, but people on the outside looking in, even with all the stuff that's going on, somehow still think that making music is the easy way out. There is no money in making music. Everything that these people own is owned by the record labels. Their house is the record labels. Their car is the record labels. The money they flash that's usually not even real is the record labels. Actually, another thing I could throw in, it doesn't even seem like people just want the riches anymore. They just want the fame, which is kind of funny because in the UK drill scene, there's people that literally don't show their face because they admit, I just want the money. I don't want the fame. I don't want people harassing me and telling me how to live my life. But it's like a lot of people, they just want the fame at this point. They want to be a quote-unquote influencer because society pushes pride in what's now called narcissism. Although I don't even like psych labels, which I don't want to go on a rant about that. But society pushes pride, so like now people want to like tell people what to do and have people screaming their name while they're on a stage and stuff. And honestly, you really don't want that. Fame isn't a good thing. It's really not. And there's a saying, if you believe them when they say you're doing good, you're going to believe them when they say you're doing bad. There's also other sayings, but it's like, As I always say, the school system is one of many branches of the Cash for Kids system. So, Catholic schools, private schools, Greek letter schools, colleges, and regular ones. Ivy League, which those are all Freemason and Eastern Star, including the Catholic Church ones, because Freemasonry is a branch of the Catholic Church, the pagan Roman Catholic Church. So is the Triple K. I always throw that in there, although that's kind of a side thing. But people like Ice Spice and Young Mabu, I think that's his name, which he's in the bloodline anyway, obviously. But those two, he went to an Ivy League school. Ice Spice went to a private Catholic school. So they have been getting trained up by obviously families who are in the bloodline and the school system. Just like a lot of these rappers out of Atlanta, they've went to Greek letter schools, fraternity and sororities, college, high school and middle school and elementary. And that's another thing that's commonly pushed with the music industry. People commonly push this idea that these are quote-unquote uneducated people. These people have been to highly expensive schools. They've been to college. They're deep into the occult. That's very knowledgeable by worldly standards. So a lot of this, they're not educated. It's like racial stuff and racial narratives. But they're not educated in a good way, which is why they're in the music industry anyways. So yeah, they're educated a lot by worldly standards. Branch of the Cash for Kids system to be industry plants. And of course they go through all types of rituals in these schools as well. And did I ever make that video about how I had a dream about 3 people who are now famous? I don't know who the other 2 were. The other 2 were dudes. One of them wait a minute. Okay, before I say it, I know people are gonna be like, this is just people are gonna have something to say, but I swear I don't even listen to music. I really don't. So if 4 people try to like come for me and say that like I like these people or something weird, just no. I didn't even know who the lady was actually when I first had this dream, but the lady that people call Sexy Red, because I don't even want to have that come out of my mouth, but this was a while ago. I didn't even know who she was at the time. I had a dream about her. 2 dudes, don't know who they were. It was some other rappers, and it was 3 of them. Other people were around. They were in one of those dark rooms in one of those parties with a table, and they were doing one of the sexual rituals that you have to do to get to the top. I can also add that if I'm remembering right, she's from Atlanta. She's probably been to a Greek letter school. She's obviously in a Freemason family. She's a COINTELPRO CIA plant, oh my gosh, to drag melanated people and whoever else into some bullcrap when people are supposed to be waking up. I mean, even Glorilla, if I'm saying that right, I don't even think that's her real name, but Glorilla, if anybody even remembers her, she went to Jehovah's Witness school or something like that. She was a Jehovah's Witness, which is also a branch of Freemasonry, which of course is under the pagan Roman Catholic Church, and is a branch of Christianity and all the false pagan mixes and bullcrap. Now, I'm going to be all over the place, but going way back to the Y&W thing, I meant to say this, but then I kept forgetting. Y&W is one of the people that had a childhood that was so bad. He didn't even have to go through trauma-based mind control in the industry. He had already been through enough of it just with his family. And that's a big thing too. From what I remember, at least from what I know and remember, does that make sense? I don't know. He had a similar situation to Roddy Ricch. Roddy Ricch had a stepdad that didn't like him, common situation, and would beat him up all day, made him sleep on the floor, and a whole bunch of stuff. Y&W had a similar situation. One of the quote-unquote stepdads didn't like him, would beat him up all the time. He was barely allowed around his real dad because of the usual funny issues in these situations with... Okay, wait a minute. I guess the audio overlaps somewhere, so yeah, I screwed that up a little bit, but... Funny acting people who are messed up and don't care. And that made things even worse for him, because of course, he's gonna feel like, my dad doesn't like me, because when people aren't allowed around their dad or they're not told who their dad really is, they're commonly made to think that their dad didn't want to be around, even though that's not true. And so he would feel like, I'd assume anyway, because this is how it goes. My real dad doesn't like me, and then I'm getting beat on by this other dude, and my mom won't do anything. And then here comes the mom probably had a lot of roles in abuse as well, other than just being an enabler, so. Multiple personalities from trauma, the want for fame, more abandonment and rejection, more want for fame, or for people to like you or at least claim they like you. So, yeah. Then I think about TK, but TK was into the Cash for Kids system heavy because he was a foster kid. He was in CPS custody when all the crap went down. Both of his parents were in a gang, the mom and the dad. His dad broke his arm for a quote-unquote whooping when he was like 7. Not that there's ever a reason to break people's arms or break your kid's arm. But of course, people say it's just discipline. Maybe I should just do a part 2. I meant to say not that there's a reason to break your kid's arm at any age. This is why I have to say stuff in the screen recording. Because, I don't want this to be too long. TK is the one who went to jail for making the song The Race. Well, he went to jail for unaliving someone to try to rob them with some other people to try to become big in the music industry. And then he made the song, something like that, but when he originally ran, he was running from foster care. Which, of course, being in foster care is being homeless. It's in and of itself trafficking. It's a part of the Cash for Kids system. And when you're in CPS custody, you'll commonly end up living on the streets multiple times before 18. It seems as though he's one of the industry plants that they didn't care too much for. Because usually, well, no. When you're deep into the industry and you've done a lot of the rituals and all the bull crap and the messed up stuff, the people that they want you to do, and they've done whatever they wanted to do to you, then you don't go to jail. But when you haven't done all that, then you can go to jail and get a life sentence and they don't care and they won't get you out. And this also reminds me of the Yummy Sanders situation. This was one of my favorite, well, that sounds weird, but when I was a lot younger, way back in the day, back in about the 70s, I liked the documentary about Yummy Sanders because it showed the aftermath of trauma in an overall bad environment and living in a community with no accountability for child abuse and trauma. If you don't know who Yummy Sanders is, go ahead and Google it or find a video on here. There's plenty of videos about it. He was about 11. He was dragged into a gang and was conditioned into taking somebody out for some people. Because, of course, when you're in situations like this, the older people around you will try to get you to do stuff, and they'll tell you, oh, well, if you do it, you won't get as much time because you're a kid. Honestly, it's the other way around. But he was supposed to take out somebody, but he ended up hitting the wrong person because I'm trying to avoid saying certain things. And then one of the other gangs or something took him out. And then, of course, Tupac, the human trafficker in the Bloodlines, that dude tried to play hero on stage one day, I think at Coachella. And supposedly Snoop Dogg danced off the stage because he didn't want to get hit, because Tupac was cursing people out about the Yummy Sanders situation. And he was saying, y'all gangs are out here unaliving kids. Honestly, I should have said Tupac, the dude that wears corsets and cheetah underwear for women. Gang thing is really besides the point. The real issue is all the trauma he went through with his family that made him start to lack empathy and emotion and look for love in other places in the first place, which honestly, a lot of people say he didn't even really do it anyway, which that's another thing that commonly happens with this gang bull crap, is they like to blame kids for stuff that they didn't do. And then, of course, the kid gets a life sentence or whatever else happens. And the kids that they say hit him, they didn't do it either. Everybody knows who really did it, but nobody wants to say it, because that's how this stupid little effeminate thug persona Willie Lynch syndrome house nigger programming goes. Specifically, no snitch culture. But man, I'm about to go on a rant way off somewhere else. I was about to go into the whole Emmett Till thing and how his family wouldn't tell him stuff. Because people never want to talk about the real full stories of these situations. That's what nobody ever wants to do. Because you're taught nobody should take accountability, don't hurt anybody's feelings, don't nothing. Nobody ever wants to hear the full truth. It's always no accountability. And the way I see it, okay, wait a minute, because I'm about to go off somewhere else. So I've mentioned the whole situation of mixed kid trauma before. And when I say mixed kid trauma, I specifically mean the common traumatic situations of mixed kids with quote-unquote black dads and quote-unquote white moms, or sometimes quote-unquote Mexican moms. No, quote-unquote white moms and Mexican dads. But specifically the white mom, black dad, that. So I've met plenty of people with that, and I noticed that we have a lot of similarities as to where we see the bullcrap and no accountability on both ends, and the mind control on both ends. I commonly say that for people that try to act like they're so different and don't like each other, they're very similar, especially with how we've been conditioned to take on the traits of other people and the quote-unquote cultures of other people, and then start claiming it's our culture and it's just discipline and this is just how we do things in America, all that stuff. And of course, everybody comes from Negroid, so it's gonna make sense why there be so many similarities, but man, oh man. But anywho, before I go way off into that, and of course make some people mad, as I try to purposely do because what I'm saying is always true. The sad boy and rock music variant. And then lastly, I'm going to read this screenshot. The videos are going to be in the description. Actually, they're probably going to be in a playlist, which is also going to have other videos that I want to talk about, but probably won't get to. Okay, I got to throw this in here. I spent so much time trying to figure out if Nicki Minaj was in the firm and screwing everything up when talking about the whole firm situation and the Queensbridge project. I forgot to say the point, which is that this gangster rap stuff and the taking people out and the hitting people, because I'm trying to like cold term everything, that was the beginning of sad music and depressed music or depression music and even drill. People even say that Mobb Deep, which is Havoc and Prodigy, were the first drill rappers. And I could definitely say people like them, they were the first sad boys because everything they talked about was about depression and horrors. Because I'm about to like be on the road again. So these 300 videos that I've uploaded in like the last couple of weeks, I'm not going to be uploading again for a while because I'm going to be out and about again, basically. So I was in one spot for a good minute, and yeah, that's why I've been making a lot of videos. Okay, forgot something. I think I watched my first Yummy Standards documentary when I was about 8 or 9. And it really stuck with me because even though a lot of people feel like I just talk about the things I do because I'm screwed up in the head and a lot of things have happened to me and I'm angry and bitter, I have actually always been very much into the music industry, subliminal messages, DID, splits, alters. It's stuff that I've always researched. And it's definitely all by design because literally, like, everything in life goes back to, like, one or two things. And everything is always connected pretty much. And it's like, I think that's like another, well, because this is going to be way too long. Never mind. But I was just going to say that pretty much everything that I've learned throughout my life and the things that I've had happen to me and I've seen happen to other people, they all are connected. It all makes sense. It makes even more sense every single day. Every single day. Actually, that's a saying I used to have every single day because now I'm about to start trauma dumping. I'm really trying to stay on the point. Getting back to the point 30 days later. Sigil threads, subliminal messages, backmasking, spells, witchcraft language, channeling spirits to make songs, frequencies to control the mind, repetition chants, etc. And then, of course, the bloodlines and Freemasonry and people being raised up to become industry plants through trauma-based mind control and other things. This is done in all music, but I noticed that at least in America, there's all this talk about quote-unquote white people music and quote-unquote black people music, but it's all the same. It has the same meanings, the same mind control, the same brainwashing. And it's really interesting. Like, there's even sayings like, rock music is white man's rap, even though, rock music was made by quote-unquote black people too. So was country, so like, what's the point? And then quote-unquote black people had this idea that rap music wasn't overtly satanic, but rock music was. And like, there's this thing that we'd always say, which is like whenever somebody's talking about Satan worship, people be like, oh, that's white people stuff. Worshiping the devil is white people stuff. But it's like the music was all about the same crap. Rock music taught you sacrifice others and yourself. Rap music taught you hurt other people, specifically other ones that are Yasharael and look like you. At least once music really got hijacked by the serpent seed, the real white supremacists at the top, and then they started pushing out the gangster rap, quote unquote, as people like to call it, and they switched from the conscious rap to the gangster rap, which really was a fetish. But this goes back to something I mentioned about how like there's black breeding groups, if I can even say that. So like white supremacists, like how the women, they want to get with quote-unquote black women and the men want to get with quote-unquote black men and vice versa. But especially the quote-unquote white men wanting to get with quote-unquote black men. So they have like groups about that on the open and dark web. And like this gangster stuff that was pushed by the serpency who run the music industry, it was actually really just a white man's fetish. That's what it really was. That's why they pushed the whole sodomy ritual, sagging the pants, because that's what that means. It stands for trauma, and it means that the person's been violated and they've been SA'd. And yeah, that's why they actually pushed that. People say it started in prison. That's honestly not true. It's like a old trauma-based mind control thing, and it happens in prison because the same crap happens in prison, Virgo-Vasal, but it didn't start there. They shut all the conscious people up, and they even did the Queensbridge project, where they pretty much went out and scraped up a whole bunch of traumatized, depressed, poor kids from messed up family systems like Nicki Minaj, Capone and Noriega. No, who was in the firm? Now, I know people always say this is before your time and you just want to talk, but you're just brainwashed and don't understand how we got to the point that we're at. That's why you're probably one of the ones that's always saying this new generation does this and that. Every generation normalizes some more bull crap. Some more evil, messed up bull crap. So, I don't think Capone and Noriega, I think they're from like Queensbridge too, but they're not the ones I'm thinking about. Because they're not in the firm. Who was it? Prodigy, Mobb Deep? No, Mobb Deep is Prodigy and Havoc. Nicki Minaj was in the firm. No, she wasn't. Hold up, wait a minute. She was in Young Money. The Queensbridge Project. Honestly, I would edit that out, but sometimes I don't edit that stuff out because it's really funny, to be honest. But I could also throw in the whole situation where they had started like getting the UK rappers against the Queensbridge ones or the New York ones, and they got those British dudes to make that song "The Bridge Is Over." And I remember, well, I'm talking about some I remember, like I was even alive then, but I remember another situation like that where like UK music started to get really popular, and a lot of the quote-unquote black people in the US were like, wait a minute, there's black people in England, in London, in Great Britain, or whatever it's called. So that was really interesting. But yeah, that's not what I meant to say. But either way, Nicki Minaj was still a part of the Queensbridge Project. She just wasn't in the firm. In fact, one thing that I always think about with trauma-based mind control and how this music, especially in the 80s to early 2000s, was used to brainwash generations of people. I think of the firm, affirmative action. I think of Nas. And I think of, this wasn't the Queensbridge Project, but I still think of Bone Thugs and Harmony, Mo Murder. That was chants and rituals, obviously, probably even a sigil thread. That was used to brainwash generations of people into taking out their own kind, which are also in Yasharael especially. Like, that song was straight up witchcraft. That was definitely channeled. Nobody can tell me anything else about that. I think of the song Hail Mary by Tupac. That's just weird in general. But of course, that's Queen of Heaven worship, which is Lilith. Let the Catholic Church tell you whatever you want to let them tell you, but that's a video of its own. But yeah, so they went to Queensbridge, they scraped up a whole bunch of people who were messed up, and they got them to push the agenda of gangster rap. And that went how that went. That's what I was trying to say these past 19 minutes. And I can also throw Rihanna in there. I don't even remember if she was in Young Money or not, but she was kidnapped from Barbados, so I mean, that's still worth mentioning all the time. Oh, and dang, I forgot to mention Maddox. He was one of the shock factor quote-unquote white kids that was also, of course, sold out by his mom a house. I forgot to mention him way back when. He was the background for one of XXX's songs. I don't remember what it was called. I think he was like saying ooh in the background or something. Could be another song. The dude on YouTube who plays the ukulele and gets rappers to freestyle while he plays the ukulele, Maddox was in one of his videos. In fact, that was one of his biggest videos, if I remember, at least one of his first big videos. And that was when Maddox was like, hundreds to hundreds, no green. RP cuts little D. My diamonds is water, I'm freeze. Something, something, something you dig. Your chain is light, you dig. New whip, no bite, you dig. You dig, you dig. Got it out the mud, how you feel, whole gang eat whole meals. I'm probably out of order. But yeah, he was about 12, he had anime hair, his hair was blue or pink or something, and eventually he came back and they had him wearing a dress. So the usual. And then people talk junk instead of looking at the bigger picture, and then he got mad and he was like, I could still get more B's than you and while wearing a dress. And yeah, so usual sad situations with the industry. And it seems like when the people aren't born in through like bloodlines of Freemason families, it seems like in other situations, it always has something to do with a single mom selling her kids out because it's the easy way to get the bills paid, or at least it's easy for her, but not for anybody else. I even remember in the comments of one of the Maddox videos, somebody was like, a 12-year-old shouldn't be buying their mom a house. The money should have went into a trust fund. And what I've always said throughout the years is that parents raise their kids to be their boyfriends and girlfriends. It's emotional incest, surrogate spousing, infantilization, and parentification. I'm still trying to get over the whole Nicki Minaj was in the firm thing. This video is going to be in the description. I've never watched the movie. I just seen the clip. I could obviously tell what it was about. I'm sure it was about somebody who lived the situation as well. I've known a girl specifically who really reminds me of the girl in the clip, the movie clip. The piercings, the addiction, traumatic situations, bad mom, bad dad, or the dad's wherever in the world. There's also some side trauma because her parents are racist. But yeah. And I noticed while reading the comments that, of course, people were saying things like, when I was younger, I thought that the kid was cool, or I wanted to do that, and I was in that life. But now that I'm older and I watch the movie again, or I think back on it, I feel bad for the mom, and the daughter was terrible. And it's very interesting how over the years people get conditioned into blaming the youth and not looking at the bigger picture and how the family as a whole is dysfunctional, or the parents are abusive, or there was a lot of neglect, or there was just a lot of bad parenting thing, whether it was done on purpose or not, that messed the kid up. Once you become quote-unquote grown, you get the grown complex. And like I always say, you will never meet anybody, regardless of gender, who runs around saying, I'm grown, or I'm a grown man, or I'm a grown woman, who's not traumatized with cognitive dissonance, abusive, and toxic. Stay away from people that run around saying, I'm grown. Just never, don't go near them, don't look at them, don't nothing. Don't cough around them, don't fall, don't trip, don't tie your shoe, don't eat, don't nothing. don't breathe, don't sleep, don't blink. So, to start reading this comment, it's funny to me a lot of people seem to have grown up and look back at this movie and feel like she was just simply an quote-unquote angsty teenager. I threw all that in there. I don't know what that term means, so I hear that a lot, and I don't really know what that's supposed to mean. But she was a traumatized teen, dealing with abandonment by her father and neglect by her mother, dealing with her mother choosing men over her, dealing with her mom clearly having mental health issues, etc. That does a number on a child's behavior. I'm not saying the behavior is okay, but that it was more than just angst, and there's an explanation behind it psychologically. I also see a lot of people say I feel bad for the mom now, and sure, maybe to a degree I do, but she also caused harm that led to her daughter feeling compelled to attach herself to who she did, which is exactly what happened to me. I don't think that should necessarily be overlooked. I kind of feel worse for Tracy, and even, I can't really see that because my screen is cracked, to a degree. Didn't have the love and stability they needed as developmentally vulnerable children. Developmentally vulnerable. I've never heard that before. But yeah, so that's the end of this video. I was all over the place. I guess I'm just gonna title it Industry Kids now, because I was all over. I wanted to throw in something else about the clip. That movie clip was really like something I could understand because, like I said, that reminded me of someone I specifically knew, and they were 14 when I met them, but they were about 12 when things really, really got bad, and they started like falling into that life or getting dragged into that life by another girl who was getting essayed because she had bad parents and she was like meeting chomos, and then she was like, well, since you're my girlfriend and we're dating, let's go date these chomo dudes too at the same time. So they were dating each other, but then she dragged her to also date old dudes. And of course they both were getting abused and stuff, and their parents were on drugs, so it was like whatever. And it was like a lot, but I remember specifically like situations where the girl would sound kind of just like the girl in the movie clip. I wouldn't really know what she was talking about. She would call me crying at 12 a.m. about like ceiling demons and some other stuff, or just like talking junk. And you know, it's like really a sad situation with the abuse and all the things that revolve around all of it. So yeah, people just, they're taught to forget what happened to them and forget how they feel and have cognitive dissonance, and to just like repress all of it and have it in a dissociative amnesia box somewhere deep inside their subconscious, and to just start saying I'm grown and kids are bad. And yeah,